The word that's often thrown about is the word passion. And I think that that does a disservice to people because it implies that, one day you're going to wake up, you're going to find your passion, bada bing, bada bang, and you're going to fall instantly in love and you're going to be good at it and you're going to dedicate yourself to it. I think it's much more realistic that as you go through life, you'll find some things interesting and it arouses your curiosity. So you explore it. And what I'm telling people is you should explore a lot of these curiosities, these interests, and knock on wood, 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4 in your life will become a passion. But to go through life saying, I got to find this passion and it's going to be instant, permanent love. Yeah. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. Do a lot of sampling.
Guys, help me welcome my good friend, Guy Kawasaki. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm going to go surfing right after this. So.
Oh, that's awesome. It's funny. I heard that we both have hockey in common, so I have to pick up the puck one time and skate around the rink every now and again. But that's awesome. Well, look, man, you've had a very distinguished career. One of the things I've enjoyed and just kind of like getting to know a little bit about your content is the humor you bring to everything. I've watched the TEDx talks and some of the other keynotes. I'm like, this guy's funny. Like he's actually enjoying life. He's enjoying telling the stories. So. For those who may or may not be familiar with her, maybe give us a little insight and kind of like your background.
Oh, so yeah. So you want me to tell my story?
Well, yeah. Well, parts, a little piece of it. Something the audience kind of gets familiar with you. Obviously, you spent a great deal of time with Apple, and now the head leader over at Canva, and a lot of good stuff there, man.
I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, but I now live in Santa Cruz, California. I attended Stanford University, and after that, I went into, believe it or not, law school for 2 weeks, and I dropped out of that. I got an MBA. I started working in the jewelry business of all things. And from schlepping diamonds, I moved into tech. I was Apple's second software evangelist in the Macintosh division. And then I started some companies. I returned to Apple as Apple's chief evangelist. I became a writer and a speaker. And today I'm chief evangelist of Canva, which is an online graphic design service. I'm also a podcaster. I have a podcast called Remarkable People, which is the basis for this book called Think Remarkable.
Yeah.
And that's where I am. I'm an evangelist, podcaster, author, speaker.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I love it. The book. I was kind of surprised. It's really dense, like in a good way. Meaning there's a lot of concept packed into a few pages there. I mean, was that intentional? Like, to kind of
very intentional. Because listen, I'm the author of 16 books, so I know what it takes to write a book, and many, many business books in particular. They're one topic for 250 pages, right? So, you got to make a product that is the minimum viable product. And if that doesn't work, then you pivot quickly. Okay, I just told you what you could have read in 250 pages. So rather than have 250-page books about one, strategy, I have a 170-page book about 88 strategies. And this is because I think that Gen Z in particular, they just want to read a couple pages. And, when you read a concept like that, you either get it or you don't. It's either applicable to you or it's not. Maybe you'll come back to it. But you don't need 250 words to explain 250 pages to explain something to you. And that's the assumption of my book.
Man, I love it. I'm curious how much of that plays off of you confronting Steve Jobs during the rollout of the Think Differently meeting, and kind of like what happened?
Well, we were in a room and the ad agency unveiled the Think Different television commercials, and we loved it. And at the end, the Lee Clow from Chiat says to Steve, I got 2 copies of these ads. I'll give you one. I'll give Guy one. And Steve says, don't give Guy one. And I say to Steve, what's the matter? Don't you trust me, Steve? And Steve is only Steve Wood. He says, no, Guy, I do not trust you. And then this is one of those, make it or break it man or mouse moments. You don't want to look back and say, wow, why did I wimp out? So I fired right back. I said, Steve, it's okay. I don't trust you either. That probably cost me a few $100 million, but hey, it was worth it.
Well, look, your work precedes itself. You're doing amazing things. I want to talk about a couple of the concepts in the book, if that's all right.
Sure.
Again, there's a lot to choose from. This is a book that I recommend everybody grab 1,000%. the stories and the way it's positioned. It's just fun, just enjoyable. One of the ones that stuck out to me as being kind of as an entrepreneur who started and founded my own business and then exited recently and then now starting the next one is this mindset about changing horses midstream. Like, so can you break that down a little bit? Because I feel like a lot of times we get so
Yeah.
isolated on our baby, we don't want to let it go.
So listen, one of the cornerstones of being remarkable is a growth mindset. And a growth mindset means you learn new skills, you learn new subjects, you change, you grow.
Yeah.
And one of the ways you can grow is along the same curve. And Jane Goodall is a good example of that. As a young kid, she loved animals. Now, 90 years later, she still loves animals and she's progressed to be a leader in the renewables and just preserving biology and preserving the earth. So she's moved along that curve. You can also change curves. And the example I cite is not Jane Goodall, is Julia Child. So Julia Child, until her mid-30s, was a spook working for the organization that became the CIA. And she moved to France, fell in love with French cooking, and she became the French chef. So that's an example of changing horses. She went from spook to chef. And I love that. I mean, listen, I've changed from hardware to software to internet to podcasting. I've changed horses a few times myself.
Well, and I've heard you talk about before that, you don't believe there's such thing as like finding your purpose in life. It's like you find many purposes in life along the way.
Yeah.
Right. And what do you think that process of self-discovery really is kind of coming from?
Well, I think, the word that's often thrown about is the word passion. And I think that does a disservice to people because it implies that, one day you're going to wake up, you're going to find your passion, bada bing, bada bang, and you're going to fall instantly in love and you're going to be good at it and you're going to dedicate yourself to it. I think it's much more realistic that as you go through life, you'll find something's interesting and it arouses your curiosity. So you explore it. And what I'm telling people is you should explore a lot of these curiosities, these interests, and knock on wood, one or two, maybe three, four in your life will become a passion. Yeah. But to go through life saying, I got to find this passion and it's going to be instant, permanent love. Yeah. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. Don't, do a lot of sampling.
Yeah. I think James Altucher calls it happy little experiments. It's like, you can skip, he said you can skip the 10,000 hours by just having lots of little happy little experiments. And I love that. In fact, I think you're the only hockey skating surfer that I'm aware of. So I think that's pretty impressive. You can go on the water and the skates and you're still in good shape. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, I could tell you something. I took up hockey at 44. I took up surfing at 60. And that's roughly, like 35 years too late for hockey and about 50 years too late for surfing. And I will tell you that I use that as proof of my growth mindset because people at 44 or 60, they're typically not taking up something as hard as hockey or surfing. Yeah. Those two are two very hard sports to start.
They really are. I started skating myself. I think I was 37 before I did my first, what they call learn to play. And then that led to stick and puck and that led to adult league teams and so on and so forth. And I had a life coach at the time. Well, I had a different life coach at the time. I always have coaches, but she was telling me, she's like, you're pretty resilient. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, just getting back up and down off the ice, like learning to skate. I said, yeah, and I've got the bruises to prove it. I'm sure you did too. So,
well, part of the growth mindset is you have to embrace vulnerability, right? And you take up hockey or surfing at that age, you learn to embrace wounds
in a big way. I was also thinking too, like there's another concept in the book that I really like too, and it kind of came up from like during the pandemic and stuff like that. A lot of folks were obviously doing a lot of things virtually. And we were getting a lot of questions coming in either to the show or through Instagram or to me personally. And they were saying, what do I do? I'm currently not able to work, whatever. And I was like, honestly, what I think you should do right now is use your time wisely by increasing your value. Go learn a new skill, go learn a new value, go do something different than you've done it before, which plays in the growth mindset, but it also plays into another principle that I think we both share, which is making yourself indispensable.
Yes.
Because when the market picked back up, they were ready to take ownership of a whole new level of excellence in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I learned this lesson from Andrew Zimmern. Andrew Zimmern is the guy who did Bizarre Foods, and he goes around the world eating bizarre foods. And he had some issues when he was younger. So at 30, he had 3 internships at once, which
Hmm.
is some kind of record. And he told me, he was advised by his mentor that your goal in life is to be indispensable,
Yeah.
and indispensable to the TV station or indispensable to the magazine or wherever you're working, because indispensable people, they get more responsibility, they get more pay, they get more
Hmm.
opportunities, they get more flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think, I hate to tell you this, not you, but I hate to tell your listeners this, that a lot of people think, oh, the goal is work-life balance.
Hmm.
And when they say that, they think, oh, it's going to be 50% fun, 50% work. Well, I will tell you that at any given point in your life, it ain't going to be 50-50. And there's also
I
no
think
Santa
yesterday it
Claus.
wasn't 50-50. So
Now, maybe over the course of your life, if you add up all the work and
hmm.
all the fun,
Hmm.
maybe it'll be 50-50. But at any given point, it's probably going to be 90-10.
Yeah.
And this is especially true when you're young. So, you should revisit your assumption that yes, you can thread the needle and do remarkable things and make a difference while you're telecommuting 2 hours from Bali.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was I got a chance to catch your one of your recent events over with Google. And one of the things that kept coming up is you kept like really helping people understand the importance of working backwards rather than, trying to always forecast forwards. Like how has that played into your career and how's that helped you win and helps you kind of
Well,
lead others to win?
yeah, so this concept I learned from the former chief of staff of Jeff Bezos at Amazon. And he said that, one of the key concepts of Amazon and its success is that they work backwards from the customer, not forward from what they like to do.
Mhm.
I'll use a negative example. So with Kodak, Kodak, it's disappeared, right? Nobody uses a Kodak camera or Kodak film anymore. And believe it or not, Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975. But I think they were always thinking forward. We
Mhm.
make chemicals, we put them on print, and we put them on paper, we put them on film. So we just got to find people who want to buy chemicals on paper and film, and that's our business. But if they were to work backwards, they would say to themselves, well, why do people buy our film? Why do they buy our paper? It's
Mhm.
because they want to preserve memories. So
Yeah.
if you work back from the customer wants to preserve memories, not buy chemicals.
Yeah.
And so if you want to preserve memories, it would be pretty obvious to you that, oh my God, a digital camera is much better than a chemical camera.
Hmm. Well, yeah, because obviously you have the lifespan. You can put it anywhere you want. If you want to print it out, you can print it out. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You got a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
You know, I heard you talk about this before as well, and that's the importance of jumping to the curve. And that kind of plays into Kodak. It can play obviously into ice and things of that nature. I think as entrepreneurs, we get stuck in the way things have always been. And we always want to innovate, but the innovation is incremental and not monumental. Like, so maybe talk to me a little bit about the importance of jumping ahead of the curve.
Yeah, well, so what I mean by that is that I think that big changes occurs when there's a leap. It's not
Mhm.
just on the same curve. So it's not making a slightly better typewriter. You got a manual typewriter and you stay on the typewriter curve. So now it's electric, and then you add a little correctable ball that will remove the mistakes. And so now you're optimizing the typewriter curve. But then guess what? The next curve is the personal computer curve. And there is no more typewriter ball. There is no more correcting fluid. There is no more lifting off mistakes with tape. It's a completely different curve. And then maybe the next curve is augmented reality or, virtual reality.
Mhm.
And that's not exactly a better word processor. It's completely different. And I think the great innovation occurs when you change curves, not duke it out on the same curve.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Let's say we've got obvious video watchers. We got people watching or people listening. In this case, what do you think the first step is in trying to identify the next curve? Like, because obviously you have to have a lot of innovative thought. You have to be like Steve's a good example. Elon's probably a good example as well of just having like really vision that's way out here. Just to kind of see that. I don't know that everybody has that skill set. Do you think they develop it, or I mean,
Well,
how do you see it?
listen, it's clear that not everybody has that skill set. I mean, if you look at it, maybe it was Thomas Edison and it was Steve Jobs and Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, those people are famous and so rich. It's not that easy to do. And in a sense, I think for most people, the only way you can pretend to know what was going to happen was looking backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell people in Silicon Valley, what happens is we throw a lot of stuff up against the wall, and 1/2 of 1% sticks to the wall, and we go up to the wall, we paint the bullseye around what's stuck, and we say we hit the bullseye. You always hit the bullseye if you paint it on afterwards. But when people come on podcasts or they read books, it's always the success story, right?
Yeah.
So, you hear about the Elon Musk or the Steve Jobs or the Thomas Edison. You don't hear about the 9,999,999 failures.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important to consider that,
Yeah.
it's very self-selected.
Well, I also think it's important to realize that even the most visionary among us go through substantial setbacks. I mean,
Oh my
Apple
God,
almost
yes.
went bankrupt. Elon almost went bank. Like everybody's like, in pursuit of this vision, if you will. There's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of, to your point, painting the bullseye on after you have a big hit, but not thinking about the lease and the other things that didn't work out so well, right? So,
Well, there's a lot of selective memory, let's just say.
well, obviously we have the visionaries of the world, but I also know that you also share a belief that there's remarkable in all of us. So what do you think like step one of just becoming remarkable in your own right
Well,
is and leaving?
I think for sure that step one in being remarkable is not to decide to be remarkable.
Wow.
Step one is you got to do good shit. You got to do something. You got to, make a product, make a service. You got to lead a classroom. You got to coach a team. You got to change your life. You got to do something. You got to make a difference.
Yeah.
And if you make a difference and it's a big enough difference, now you don't have to be Steve Jobs or Jane Goodall. You could make a difference to one life. But when you make a difference, people will start thinking that you're remarkable. So the way it works is you make a difference, people will think you're remarkable. It's not because you woke up one day, you bought my book and you decided to be remarkable that all of a sudden you be remarkable. Because if my book could do that in one day, I would sell it for a lot more.
Well, the good news is while it took you over the 60 or so years to kind of get to where you're at and get all this wisdom in here, I dare say the book shaves off a good decade or more for most people that will get in here and consume the book.
Ah, I love to hear that.
I mean, seriously, as I was kind of going through it, I'm like, man, that's an awesome principle. That's an awesome principle. That it made it really hard to prepare for the show, to be honest with you, like really super hard because there's so much good stuff in there. And
Well,
if I couldn't use the thing now, I've used it before. Like I've used the lesson before and learned it myself. Like this is good stuff, man.
Well, in a sense, there's two factors going on there. So number one is I interviewed 250 remarkable people. And these are people like Jane Goodall and Stacey Abrams and Steve Wozniak,
Yeah.
Steve Wolfram. These are not people that don't have something to inspire you and inform you. So I've collected the wisdom of 250 people, and I've been at it for 40 years of hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
So it's not like, some 20-year-old Goldman Sachs summer intern has written a book about how to be remarkable. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody who has been through the wars has written a book, and that's me. So I've been fortunate to come out the other side.
Yeah, I love it. It's interesting to me because there was a study done. It was years and years ago. It's probably maybe a good 10 years ago, maybe 15, that said that on average, the people who have this wealth of knowledge, you just mentioned the Goldman Sachs, these people that have done very, very well, done very great things in their own careers and this other kind of stuff and done all this excellent stuff. Very seldom do they turn around and give that wisdom to someone else behind them or coming up around them. So out of that, what's in your heart that made you want to do this? Like, why did you want to pour back into the world with so much stuff?
Well, I think that I've realized that, listen, don't get me wrong, that I have a growth mindset. You can tell by when I pick up hockey and surfing. I also have grit. I can work truly hard. But even with growth and grit, it's not always about you, because there was a sixth grade teacher who turned my life, into a very different direction. There was an English teacher in high school. There have been bosses. There have been coaches. Yeah, I mean, there's probably people I don't even know of who helped me along, right? So
Yeah.
when you reach that kind of humility and you figure out, man, I'm just a lucky little guy. You figure out that, maybe I should create luck for other people and pay back the universe.
Yeah.
So I think successful people have an obligation to open the door for other people. And I kind
Yeah.
of feel bad for people who think it's a zero sum game. And, if I help other people be successful, I'll be less successful. That's really a bullshit attitude.
Well, it really is. And it's interesting you interest that, because that was one of the things that I love a lot about your approach to building teams. And because I feel like this is an entrepreneurial business CEO trap all day long. When you go and hire people that you end up suppressing because for some reason you're insecure about their excellence.
Yeah.
And you and I both agree on hiring people with excellence, period. What did you see in your career when people didn't do it well versus when people did it well?
I saw implosion and failure. I mean, well, I'll tell you something. If you're a manager listening to this, when you look around the room at your staff, if you cannot say that these people can do their jobs better than you can do, you are making a hiring mistake. Something is wrong with you. Everybody you look at should be better at you at what they do. Because if you're better than everybody, you have hired a bunch of mediocre people. Or I guess there's another more positive way to look at this is if you look around the room and they're not as good as you, but you believe that they have the ability to become as good or better than you.
Mm-hmm.
I accept that. I think that's very good attitude. But if you're hiring people around the room that are not as good as you and you want to keep them not as good as
Yeah.
you are a loser.
Yeah, well, and your business is gonna grow at a snail's pace. It never outgrows you. So eventually, if you're not there, it dies. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different reasons why it doesn't make sense to do that. I'm a big believer in hiring slow, firing fast, and mentoring often. So by hiring slow, you take your time. You really kind of understand the skill sets. Firing fast, meaning that the expectations were clearly set out, roles, responsibilities. I have learned, however, in my career, that not every failure of a team member is a failure of a team member. A lot of times it can be a leadership failure. The person wasn't taught well, led well, instructed well. Great outcomes weren't really dedicated or assigned. In your career, what have you seen in your hiring process that really works well to get the best talent on the bus, to keep us from, to kind of get us out of our own way?
Listen, you know, I think everybody you meet, they all believe they are a good judge of character, right? They're like, I'm a good hirer. I have an intuitive sense of who's going to be good. I've never met any manager who didn't say that.
Yeah.
And clearly we are not right. Like a lot of us have no idea how to hire. I,
Yeah.
I, I I think if you go in with the attitude that I want to hire people who are better than me, or I want to hire people who at least could be better than me. That's 90% of it.
Yeah.
And now you may be such a loser that it's not that hard to be better than you. I'm not saying that. But I could, like this is back in the mid 80s. And if you looked at Steve's direct reports, even back then, half were women, people of color, all that. I mean, Steve Jobs did not give a shit about your race, religion, color, sexual orientation. All he wanted to know is that can you help him make the best computer in the world? That's all that mattered to him. And hallelujah for that.
Amen. Well, amen to that, because I feel like it's obviously we have Apple as of now. I'm on Apple devices as we're recording all of this. I'm totally ingrained in their ecosystem because of the simplicity, the cleanliness of design. I always felt like Apple did a good job of solving problems I didn't know I had. If
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
any sense, And it's interesting that when you look at these organizations, and Canva is a great example of that. Honestly, I use Canva fairly regularly on a regular basis because I'm a novice I don't necessarily want to spend the money to go hire a graphic designer every 10 minutes to make it a small or slight image change, and it's been a really good resource for that, and now they're incorporating AI as well and all that good stuff. And I don't know, there's a lot of really good stuff there. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show. Steven Scoggins here. I've got something that I think is absolutely going to blow your mind. Imagine taking your life and your business to the whole another level. I'm talking about an 8-figure level and beyond. You see, you've been working your butt off to build your business to where it is now. But what if you could work smarter, free up more time, make more money and impact along the way? How much would that be worth to you? You see, I can prove that basic steps, basic mindset shifts, and subtle changes can make the biggest difference. I want to introduce you to the 8-figure mindset makeover. It's absolutely free and it's here for you. It's a powerful summary of my top strategies that help propel me from the streets, if you will, to upwards of 9 figures and quote unquote success as we like to chase it. This is more than just tips though. It's a complete mindset overhaul with simple hacks that you can apply today to begin working on your unprecedented heights in your own business. I would like the honor to share these types of things with you that turn my dreams into reality so you can experience the same type of joy and freedom that I now get to live out in my own day. In other words, it's time for you to build your own unstoppable enterprise. And if you're really ready to take it to the next level and elevate your life and your business, this is an absolute game changer for you. So if you want to take advantage of this free resource, simply go to the show notes and click the link, or you can go to stevenscoggins.com/8-figure. That's stevenscoggins.com/8-figure. Until then, much love. God bless. Let's get back to the show. Take care. One of the principles I want to go back to in the book is this concept of go see, go be, go do. If I got that right. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, why that's such an important principle.
Well, I think it's such an important principle to, instead of just reading reports or looking at dashboards, you actually go and see, what's actually happening on the factory floor, not just the report. Or go and see how people with 2 kids, 2 baby strollers, 2 baby bags, 2 car seats, go and see how they're trying to use a car.
Yeah.
But even better than going and seeing is going and being. So, you take your spouse and your 2 kids and your 2 strollers and your 2 seats and your 2 baby bags, and you try to put it in a 4-door sedan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, go actually be that person, or you go actually work on the factory and, figure out like, oh my God, how can people work here? It's so noisy, or it's so dirty, or I don't know, it's so noxious, or the parts are disorganized. I don't know, whatever, but actually go and be what you're trying to fix and what you're trying to serve.
Yeah. No, I think that's, what's interesting is I love that approach because the perspective that you gain make all things better. When it's the old adage, walk a mile in somebody's moccasins or shoes or something like that. Like that,
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've also heard you talk about that I just absolutely love, because I don't think the marketplace has enough of it, is exhibiting and experiencing and giving away grace. Like I really find it's easy a lot of times to, and I actually struggled with this as a leader for a long time. It was easy for me to find the things that were going wrong. It was difficult for me to focus on what was going right. And when things were going wrong, in between going wrong and going right, and someone needed a break, I had a hard time giving it for a long time. So I guess it's kind of a 2-part question. Why is grace so important? And then how can we be more grace giving as leaders?
I think a lot of grace and graciousness, it comes with age. I mean, you just need to get the shit beat out of you for a while in order to be gracious.
Yeah.
And you realize that, maybe you're not the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the first thing you got to realize is that taking the high road is not only better for the world and for people. I actually think it's easier, right? Like if you have to go through life always hating other people, hating their success, you're always looking for failure, you're looking for negativity. It takes a lot of energy to do that. I mean, just if you assume the best of people, give people multiple chances, and don't get me wrong, I have failed in this too, but I just think maybe I'm just lazy. It's just easier to take the high road.
Yeah.
And like if as you drive home and you're in the lane where the on-ramp comes on, like I think you can tell a lot about a person from when you're in that lane and someone is about to merge, right? So
Mhm.
some people, they see somebody about to merge, they speed up.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people just stay the same speed and they say, well, if he makes it, he makes it. And then some people slow down and wave the guy or the gal forward, right?
Yeah.
I would make the case that of those three behaviors, the one that takes the least energy and the one that brings the most satisfaction is slowing down and letting the person merge in.
It also reduces the most traffic.
And it also reduces the most traffic. And you know what? I mean, you you let somebody merge onto the freeway, you're not going to be 30 minutes late because of that.
Yeah, that's
Not at
right.
all.
Well,
Not
it's
at
kind of like,
all.
it's kind of funny because obviously, even just flying, right? Everybody's in a rush to get on an airplane, to sit on the airplane for 20 minutes while everybody else boards. Everybody arrives and leaves the same destination at the same time.
Right.
But yet you'll have somebody who's literally push past 3 or 4 people because their number on their seat is a little lower than the person behind them. I've never understood it. I'm like, I get on the plane, like it's, I don't know. And then,
Well, you know, I I guess I can understand that if you're trying to make a connection. Okay, now
that's true.
that's a reason, right? But like this rush to get out because we're all going to wait at baggage claim for 45 minutes. Like what difference does
And
it
it
make
doesn't
when you
matter
got
what
the
class you
baggage claim?
flew. It doesn't. The baggage claim is the world's equalizer.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, you've been around a lot. You've been around a lot of incredible people. And that's a gift in of itself. Um, we would generate and also agree that you're an incredible person with all that you've accomplished and done, and how you actually go to market, and how you serve, and how you work with teams. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, who's the most remarkable person you've ever worked with?
Well, by far, if the test is who you've worked with,
Well,
Steve
let's
Jobs. I
qualify
mean,
that, the most remarkable person in general. Let's see if we can get past Steve. I'm curious.
okay. So let me say this. I think the most remarkable person alive today is Jane Goodall
Wow.
because she personifies growth, grit, and grace.
Wow.
Now, 3 or 4 years ago, I might have said that Elon Musk is right up there, but then lately, Elon Musk, I don't know what's up with that guy. He's just like,
He's got his hands in lots of pies.
yeah, I don't see a lot of grace in him anymore.
Yeah.
So he fell off the list. But I mean, if you just took that part of him away, look at all the difference he's made. He's like electrified cars single handedly. He's doing satellite internet access. He's doing flying to Mars. He's building tunnels underneath Las
Yeah.
Vegas. He's doing all this kind of really game changing stuff. But man, on the gray scorecard, man, he's in the negatives.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Well, I haven't had a chance to spend probably as much time with them around them as you guys have, but it's interesting to watch leaders as they continue to grow themselves, their organizations, how it changes them long term, short term.
Yeah.
One of the things I always remind myself of is, and this comes, a good friend of mine was on an airplane one time in first class, and a lady was that air person that we talked about. She was trying to get on the plane really fast. She was clearly having a bad day. She was very aggressive. Kind of stay out of my way. Don't do this, don't do that. And he said about halfway through the flight, he had to get up to go to the bathroom. So he got up to go to the bathroom. And she was kind of a little aggressive about, because he had the window seat, she had the aisle seat, so he had to kind of like bypass her. So he comes back and notices something on her shirt, and he said, "Look, I don't want to disturb you. I'm just curious, what's that about?" Come to find, she was like, basically, he discovered that her mother had just passed away. Her mother had not had her ducks in a row, so she was absorbing all the stuff to go with that. And I find in times like that, when you're going through a lot of difficulty in life, and I'm not saying Elon is doing this, he may or may not be going through something like this, but we tend to not be our best selves, right? We tend not to be the grace giving, the empowering, encouraging person. We're, I guess we're in the middle of that thick and thin, right? So, if somebody's in the middle of the thick and thin, kind of what's worked for you, and what can you see
Well,
work
I
for others?
mean, that's a a true to life example of taking the high road, right?
Yeah.
That you could assume that she's just a Karen and she's,
Yeah.
this entitled kind of whatever person,
Hmm.
but maybe she has a reason. And, maybe that person who is trying to merge too fast on a freeway, maybe she's like a single mom and she has a kid and she's also taking care of her older parents and she just got laid off. I mean, who knows what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Or maybe she's just a jerk, but you never
But
know.
you
You
won't know.
never
But you won't.
know.
To your point, you won't know if you don't take the high road. You won't know.
Yeah.
Because the opposite of the high road is just butting heads, right? It's creating conflict and being more aggressive yourself and raising your energy state that way. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'm curious. I heard a rumor that you used AI to write the book. Is that true?
I use AI every single day of my life.
Yeah.
I am the biggest supporter of AI. I think AI is an absolute game changer, and I think it's bigger than the industrial revolution. And every day I use AI and I say to myself, how the hell did I do this before? I mean, I just
Less sleep, lots of less
yeah,
sleep.
and you know what? I know at some level that these large language models, they're just, predictive. They're putting one syllable in front of the next based
Yeah.
on some mathematical model. But I swear to God, ChatGPT is sentient.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is a lot smarter than many people I know.
Yeah. Well, and it gets smarter every single second.
Yeah.
Like it really does. I'm curious. I mean, out of all the resources and the tools that the AI currently offers, what are some of your favorite?
I use ChatGPT all the time. I use Claude. I use, Quillbot. I use all these things. And one of my, I'm glad this is one of those things like, I'm glad it's not my problem, but I don't know how you achieve domination as the large language model of choice.
Yeah.
Because I swear to God, you can go to Claude and Chat GPT and, Perplexity, which is the world's stupidest name for a company. You can go to like 5 different
Yeah.
places and ask the question, and you get really good answers 5 times. I mean, I don't know how you establish brand loyalty to an LLM.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, I'll go back to the book a little bit here. Out of when you went to go write the book, what are some of I guess, the points of ease that AI helped with, and what are some of the challenges you ran into?
So AI definitely helped me find examples. And I mentioned Julia Child earlier, right? So
Mhm.
one of my concepts was like remarkable people. They make big changes. They change horses. So I asked ChatGPT, give me examples of successful people who have changed careers.
Mhm.
And guess what? Julia Child. I had no idea Julia Child was a spook, and then she became a chef.
Neither did
And if
I
it
until the
wasn't for
show.
ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Julia Child would not be in my book with total certainty.
Yeah.
So that's to me, ChatGPT is a research assistant that is infinitely knowledgeable, infinitely patient, and pretty much free.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you beat that? How can you beat that?
The world's best assistant. For
That's
sure.
right.
Did you run into any challenges while you were kind of writing the book and kind of using some of the AI to
Well,
help out with
I
some of
mean,
that stuff?
I know that ChatGPT and all these large language models make shit up. So I also have Madison GPT. So Madison GPT is okay, Madison. So ChatGPT just told me that Julia Child was a spook until her 30s. You got to go verify that because I don't know if ChatGPT is just making that shit up. And so I had a human check all these things.
Oh man, it's fun. It's hilarious. I love it. That's so good. Well, I know I love I love the principles in the book a lot. And one of the ones that I thought was just interesting was kind of like a play on words to me. It's like learn to punch up, not down.
Yeah.
Punch up, not down.
Well,
What were you trying to say?
that's part of the high road, right? So, I cannot stand it when I see people punching down. And the example I cite in the book is when Donald Trump was making fun of the New York Times reporter with the neurological, disease that makes him shake like that, right?
Yeah.
It's so like you're a freaking billionaire. You're running for the presidency of the United States. You're making fun of somebody with neurological problems. I mean,
Yeah, that's pretty.
I
That's
mean, how much more punching down can you do, right?
that's
And
pretty
I
messed up.
just don't understand that. So,
Yeah, that's pretty messed up for sure. Well,
yeah.
man, I've enjoyed the conversation. You're welcome on the show anytime. You're a
Oh,
hoot. You're
thank you.
fun, man. I tell you what, you're awesome. Where can
And
somebody
where do
find
you
out?
live?
I'm now in Utah, ironically, in Silicon Slopes, as they call it here,
Ah,
in the
well,
Lehigh
there's no
area.
surfing there.
No. There is skiing, and they now have ice hockey coming. So, you want to come and skate some? We can lace the skates.
Okay.
You want to fly to take the 1 hour flight to California? Then we can throw on a surfboard and try that. So,
All righty. Thank you so much for having me as your guest. It's very enjoyable. Thank you for doing all the prep work.
oh,
Clearly, you've read the book.
my pleasure. Well, look, the reality is anytime we have a guest come on, I want to make sure that the world gets the most I can get
Yeah.
out of our guest. We don't take lightly who joins us on the show. We see our show as an act of service,
That's great.
as a greater good, right? We're trying to build a legacy that outlives us, and this content helps us get there.
One podcaster to another, I'll tell you that I have tried many times to go to ChatGPT and tell it, okay, what should I ask this guest? And I'll tell you something, ChatGPT is terrible at that. There's no freaking way. There's no way. There's no way. It comes up with, like, I once asked ChatGPT, I was going to have Ginny Rometty, the first female CEO of IBM, on my podcast. I said, so what should I ask Ginny Rometty? And it gives me questions like, well, ask her about the future of technology. Well, shit. I mean, I don't need a large language model for a generic question like that. I mean, I need something much more specific. So,
yeah. Well, again, it's, the guest that we bring on the show has done a lot of work themselves to be in a position to be on the show to begin with, which means they have value that the audience needs and wants and desires. And I think I'm sure you've realized this from podcasting, like there's only so many of us, like meaning there's one of you, there's one of me, and the questions that we think would be interesting to serve our audience better. I would assume that AI is going to have a hard time with that for a little while longer, because I know my buddy Tony Robbins and Dean Grattan, those guys have got digital versions of themselves that can now answer questions using AI and all kinds of really cool stuff. So I know that's maybe in the future, but no, it's been an honest joy to have you on the show, man. I appreciate you big time.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day. I hope you have a hat trick in your next game.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. See you, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right, I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
Service is everything. And, it just made me think, even for the person who's listening right now, even when it comes to the sales and sales conversations, focus on being of service, right? You should speak 20% of the time or less in a sales call. It's not about you, it's about them.